Opinion: India at the helm, seizing leadership amid UN's deepening crisis in the aftermath of dwindling global confidence in the United Nations peacekeeping efficacy exacerbated by its inability to meaningfully intervene in Gaza. The world body finds itself in a deeper, more perilous crisis, a dramatic collapse in funding. This funding shortfall, most notably marked by a staggering 30-35% decline in Indiana-US contributions since PRE 2023 levels, has reverberated through every UN agency. From child welfare to global health to humanitarian relief, the UN system is now struggling to breathe. Veterans within the UN are sounding the alarm. José Suárez, a 47-year-old UNICEF deputy director, bluntly stated, "We can no longer rely solely on state funding and conventional philanthropy." In response, UNICEF has announced sweeping cost-cutting measures, including relocating key operations away from New York to regional hubs in Nairobi, Bangkok, and Amman. Meanwhile, at the UN Secretariat, Suparna Banerjee lamented the vanishing of humanitarian funds meant to safeguard the world's most vulnerable as nothing short of catastrophic. For many, this is the most consequential unraveling of the multilateral framework since its post-World War II inception. WHO public health veteran Dr. Manish Parmar, preparing for retirement, called the current situation the brink for global health efforts. WHO is now over $1.1 billion short of its 2024-2025 budget needs. The World Food Programme is laying off 6,000 staff. UNRWA, the agency responsible for global refugee welfare, is operating in triage mode. What was once the bedrock of global humanitarian response now teeters on collapse. Even traditional allies of the UN, Europe and the United Kingdom, have reduced their commitments. While China has upped its contributions, they come tethered with transactional expectations. It is in this vacuum of steady, value-driven leadership that India emerges not just with opportunity, but with obligation. India's long-standing ambition to secure a permanent seat on the UN Security Council must now meet its litmus test. Leadership, after all, is not earned solely through population size or GDP but through resolve in moments of collective crisis. If India wishes to project itself as a Vishwaguru, a global teacher and leader, then there is no better platform than a fraying UN in need of revival. The world is not just watching how India positions itself diplomatically, but how it backs that position with tangible support, strategy, and action. An inward-focused approach will not suffice. This is the moment to define India's foreign policy with global empathy and strategic intent. India can begin by significantly boosting voluntary contributions to high-impact UN agencies such as UNDP, UNICEF, and the UN Peacebuilding Commission. These are not just feel-good humanitarian moves, they are shrewd diplomatic investments that amplify India's visibility, credibility, and influence in global governance. Reports suggest India is considering a $50 million expansion of the India-UN Development Partnership Fund over the next 5 years. This should not just be accelerated but rebranded as a centerpiece of India's global outreach. Moreover, India can lead by example through flagship initiatives in underrepresented regions. Creating India-UN flagship initiatives in Africa, small island developing states SIDS, and post-conflict societies would align India's moral narrative with its strategic aspirations. Such moves would not only improve lives but also strengthen India's claim as a benefactor of the Global South. India should also double down on one of its most respected areas within the UN system: peacekeeping. By financing specialized peacekeeping units such as women-led contingents and engineering battalions, India could both fill the gaps left by shrinking peacekeeping budgets and innovate with impact. A proposed India peacekeeping training hub in New Delhi would further institutionalize this leadership. India cannot and need not compete dollar for dollar with China's expansive bilateral aid. But what it lacks in volume, it can make up for in vision. By embracing South-South and triangular cooperation, India can magnify its impact through collaboration. Establishing a Global South facility under UN auspices, coupled with tripartite development programs involving India, a developed donor, and a recipient nation, could cement India's role as a trusted bridge between worlds. This would elevate India as the architect of a new development paradigm, one that is more inclusive, respectful, and sustainable than old models of North-South aid. Critically, India must ensure that its expanded financial and operational support translates into real reform. Within the UN, the current governance architecture of the United Nations remains frozen in a post-1945 reality. India's increased stake should be leveraged to advocate for structural reforms, democratizing leadership, accelerating Security Council expansion, and enhancing financial transparency across the system. If India funds the UN in a crisis, it must also help shape the UN of the future. A more representative, effective, and transparent UN is not just a win for global stability, it is a strategic win for India's vision of the world. India's aid strategy must now evolve from a binary bilateral-multilateral model to a hybrid approach. While strategic infrastructure and connectivity projects may remain bilateral, India's social sector and humanitarian aid can gain exponentially more traction through UN partnerships. This method, combined with clear co-branding and robust accountability, can ensure diplomatic visibility while reinforcing multilateralism. As India increases its global footprint from Africa to Latin America, partnering with UN agencies provides both credibility and reach. It is cost-efficient, values-aligned, and geopolitically potent. The global order is changing, not just in economic or military terms, but in how legitimacy and leadership are defined. As the UN grapples with a near-existential crisis, India has a once-in-a-century opportunity to shape the future not just by demanding a seat at the table but by rebuilding the very table itself. The world needs a steady hand and a principled vision. India can offer both. Whether New Delhi rises to the occasion will not only determine the future of multilateralism but may well define the legacy of India's global aspirations. Swipe left for next video. Now is the time for courage, compassion, and action. Nen the writer is a technocrat, political analyst, and author. He pens national, geopolitical, and social issues. His social media handle is Prasenjitunth. Views expressed in the above piece are personal and solely those of the author. They do not necessarily reflect NEWS18's views. Latest blogs.